The winds of Montana cut through the barren landscape like a blade. Sam Holloway, a lone cowboy, was no stranger to the harsh weather of the region. It was late March, and the snowstorm had arrived without warning, blanketing the land in a shroud of white. The wind howled, biting at Sam's skin and making the world around him nothing more than a blur. He tugged his collar up higher, urging his mare to push through the snow as he made his way to check the fence lines. The storm was bad, but Sam had seen worse. The snow was deep, the wind howling with fury, and the visibility was near zero. Yet, as he made his way through the white wilderness, a strange feeling settled in his chest. This storm was different. It wasn't just a snowstorm, it was an omen. But Sam wasn't a superstitious man. He pressed on, determined to complete his work. It was a lonely life, one of isolation and hard work, but that was all he had ever known. That was until the wind carried a sound he couldn't ignore, a cry. At first, Sam dismissed it. He thought it was just the wind playing tricks. But then, it came again. A desperate cry, faint but unmistakable. Without hesitation, Sam turned his mare towards the sound. It didn't matter if the storm was worsening or if the day was growing late. He couldn't ignore the cry of a child. It didn't take long for Sam to find the source of the sound. His heart sank. An overturned wagon, half buried under the snow, its canvas flapping in the storm like a flag of surrender. And there, beside the wagon, lay a woman, motionless, her face pale as death. A small boy no older than 9 shivered beside her, his eyes wide with fear. "Please don't leave us." The boy's voice cracked through the wind, a raw desperation in his words. Sam's heart tightened. He could see the boy's terror, and in that moment, Sam knew there was no turning back. He couldn't leave them behind. Not now. Not when they needed him. Sam dismounted and made his way to the woman. He quickly checked her pulse, faint but there. She wasn't dead, but she wasn't far from it either. He gently lifted her into his arms, careful not to jostle her, and draped her over his saddle. The boy, still trembling, clung to Sam's waist. Together, they would make it through the storm together, Sam vowed. The lone cowboy's rescue. The storm was unforgiving. The wind sliced through the air, stinging Sam's face as he urged his mare onward, fighting against the blinding snow. The woman lay limp in front of him, her condition worsening with each passing minute. The boy, Thomas, clung to Sam as if his very life depended on it. The snow piled high around them, making every step feel like a battle. But Sam kept moving, one foot in front of the other, determined to get them to safety. The cabin was a mile away, but in the storm, it felt like 10. Sam's muscles ached from the cold, and his breath came in ragged gasps, but he didn't slow down. He couldn't afford to. The boy's shivering form was a constant reminder that time was running out. Sam had spent countless winters alone, but never had he been so aware of the fragile line between life and death. The wind whipped around him, pulling at his coat, and the snow drifted over his boots, slowing him down. Still, he pressed forward. He would not fail them. As the cabin finally came into view, Sam felt a surge of relief. The warmth of the fire inside was like a beacon, guiding him home. He pushed open the door and hurried inside, careful not to disturb the fragile woman on his saddle. The cabin felt like a different world compared to the storm outside. The fire crackled in the hearth. The scent of venison stew lingered in the air, and the simple comfort of his home was a stark contrast to the bitter cold he had just endured. Sam laid the woman on his bed and turned to the boy, still holding tight to his waist. "You're safe now," Sam said, though his voice betrayed the exhaustion he felt. The boy nodded but didn't speak. He was too scared, too shaken by the events of the last few hours. Sam quickly went to work. He built up the fire, set a kettle of water on the stove, and rummaged through his supplies for something to help the woman. The cold had seeped into her bones, but Sam wasn't about to let her die in his cabin. He had lost too much already, and he wasn't about to let them become another lost cause. The boy, still clutching his coat, watched him silently. "What's your name, son?" Sam asked, turning his attention to the child. "Thomas," the boy whispered. "Thomas Thornton." The name stopped Sam cold. Thornton? The Thornton family? The wealthiest family in the territory? Sam's mind raced, but before he could ask more, the woman stirred, her eyes fluttering open. Sam moved to her side, gently lifting her head and offering her a drink. "Ma'am, can you hear me?" he asked softly. Her eyes locked onto his, and Sam saw a flicker of recognition. But there was no time for questions now. Her survival was the only thing that mattered. "My name is Adelaide," she said weakly. "And this is my grandson, Thomas. We're in your debt." Sam didn't know what to make of the statement. Debt? He hadn't done this for repayment. He had done it because it was the right thing to do. But the mention of debt made something stir inside him. This wasn't just any family. These were the Thorntons' wealth and power wrapped in mystery. Sam didn't press them for answers. There would be time for that later. For now, all that mattered was keeping them alive. The cabin's unexpected guests. As the days passed and the storm raged on, Sam began to notice small things about Adelaide and Thomas that didn't quite fit. They were polite, gracious even, but there was something in the way they moved, something in the way Adelaide handled their limited supplies that made Sam pause. She wasn't just any traveler. She was resourceful, organized far more than the average person. And the boy, Thomas, had a sharpness in his eyes, a quiet wisdom that felt out of place for a child so young. Sam had always lived a simple life, and he knew when someone was hiding something. The problem was, he wasn't sure what it was. They weren't just a family caught in a storm. There was something more to them, something Sam couldn't quite figure out. As the thaw began, Adelaide continued to help around the cabin, cooking and cleaning, her movements graceful and efficient. She never complained, never asked for anything beyond what Sam could offer. But Sam couldn't shake the feeling that they were keeping something hidden. One evening, as they sat around the fire, Sam finally asked, "Where are you headed after this?" Adelaide gave a slight smile, but her eyes told a different story. "We're not sure," she said softly. "We've been running for a while, just trying to find somewhere safe." Sam didn't press her further. She had already told him more than she probably intended, but something nagged at him. Safe from what? Or who? A cowboy's heart and his past days in the cabin passed slowly, the storm finally easing but leaving behind a layer of sadness in its wake. Sam Holloway's life had been a quiet one, a solitary existence shaped by grief, hard work, and the rhythms of the land. He'd spent the last few years alone, isolated from the world after the devastating loss of his wife, Clara. She had died in a storm just like this one, leaving him with a broken heart and a small piece of land that reminded him of everything he'd lost. His daughter, too, had passed, leaving him with only memories. The world had moved on, but for Sam, it hadn't. As the days turned into weeks, Sam found himself slowly adjusting to the presence of Adelaide and Thomas. They weren't just guests, they were something more, something Sam wasn't sure he was ready for. Their warmth filled the cabin, the sounds of Thomas's laughter and Adelaide's quiet wisdom breaking the silence Sam had grown so accustomed to. It was a strange feeling, welcoming strangers into his life after so many years of solitude, but in some ways, it felt like fate had placed them in his path. One evening, after a long day of splitting wood and fixing the roof, Sam sat by the fire, his thoughts heavy. Adelaide had been working beside him all day, mending his torn clothes, and Thomas had been helping him in the barn. They had become part of his life in a way he never expected. The little boy, with his insatiable curiosity, and Adelaide, with her quiet strength, had brought something back to Sam that he hadn't realized he needed: companionship. That night, as Sam sat alone, reflecting on the past few weeks, Adelaide joined him by the fire. She had a quiet strength about her, something familiar yet foreign. She didn't speak immediately, but Sam could feel her eyes on him, studying him. "Sam," she began, her voice soft but steady, "I've been thinking, you lost someone too, didn't you? That's why you live alone, isn't it?" Sam's breath caught in his throat, and for a moment, the fire seemed to flicker out. He had never spoken of Clara to anyone. The pain of losing her was still raw, a wound that hadn't healed. But in that moment, he realized how much he wanted to talk about her, how much he needed someone to understand. "Yeah," he finally said, his voice thick. "I lost my wife and daughter to a storm 3 winters ago, just like this one." He paused, swallowing hard. "It's been hard to live with it. I don't know if I'll ever be able to let go." Adelaide didn't say anything at first. Instead, she simply nodded, her eyes filled with understanding. She had lost her own husband, and though she hadn't spoken of him much, Sam could see the sorrow in her eyes whenever the subject was broached. She knew the pain of loss all too well. The silence between them was comfortable, not awkward. It was the kind of silence that spoke volumes without saying a word. And as they sat there, side by side, Sam felt something shift inside him. He wasn't alone anymore. He had someone to share his pain with, and in return, he had become a part of their lives as well, the invisible wealth behind their eyes. As the days passed, Sam's suspicion grew. Adelaide and Thomas were not who they claimed to be. The subtle differences in the way they handled things, the way they spoke, the way Adelaide moved with quiet confidence, it all pointed to something Sam couldn't ignore. These were not just people down on their luck. They weren't just wanderers who had ended up in his cabin by accident. No, Sam could tell that there was something more to them, something hidden beneath the surface. It was in the way Adelaide managed their resources. Despite being stranded in a small cabin with limited supplies, she never seemed to run out of ideas. She stretched their food with ease, crafting meals from ingredients that Sam had nearly forgotten he had. Her skill with the needle and thread was unmatched, mending Sam's worn-out coat with a finesse he'd never seen before. There was a quiet sophistication in the way she worked, a grace that spoke of a life lived beyond hardship. And Thomas, the boy, had a quiet intelligence that Sam couldn't quite place. He was young, too young to understand the world the way he did, but his questions were sharp, his curiosity insatiable. Sam had taught him how to track animals, how to care for a horse, but the boy had learned far faster than Sam had expected. It was as if the boy already knew everything Sam was teaching him and simply needed someone to show him the way. One afternoon, while Sam worked on the fence outside, Adelaide sat by the fire, quietly sewing. Thomas was playing by the creek, his small form barely visible in the distance. Sam found himself watching her. The way her fingers moved with purpose, her expression distant but content. He had no idea what was going on inside her mind, but he felt that she was watching him too, as though she was waiting for something. "Adelaide," Sam said, his voice breaking the silence. "You're not just some stranger, are you? There's more to you and Thomas than you're telling me." She looked up at him, her eyes steady. For a moment, Sam thought she might say something, but she didn't. Instead, she smiled, but there was a sadness behind it. "You're right," she said softly. "We've been running for a long time, Sam. We didn't want anyone to know who we were. We didn't want anyone to know what we had lost." Sam felt a lump form in his throat. He had been right. These two weren't just survivors, they were running from something far bigger than Sam could imagine. But what? And why had they chosen his cabin, his life, to hide in? Before he could ask any more questions, She rose and went to the door. "You'll understand in time, Sam. But for now, just know that we're grateful for your kindness. That's all that matters." And just like that, she was gone, leaving Sam to wonder about the truth that lay just out of reach. An unspoken connection grows. The thaw finally came, melting the heavy blanket of snow that had kept Sam, Adelaide, and Thomas isolated from the world. With the end of winter, the land began to stir again, and so did the trio living in Sam's small cabin. The storms had passed, but an unspoken storm had settled within Sam, a storm of emotions, regrets, and questions. He had spent years living in quiet solitude, but now he found himself sharing his life with people who had shaken him out of his routine. It wasn't just about surviving anymore, it was about living. And Sam realized he hadn't truly lived for a long time, not since Clara's death. Over the next few weeks, Sam and Thomas became fast companions. Sam taught him practical skills, how to mend saddles, how to break a horse, how to read animal tracks in the snow. But there was more than just learning going on. Sam found himself listening to the boy, really listening, as he asked questions about life, the land, and everything in between. Thomas's curiosity was endless, but it was his quiet wisdom that took Sam by surprise. "Why do rabbits hop in circles, Mr. Holloway?" Thomas asked one afternoon as they sat on the porch, a small fire crackling in the distance. Sam chuckled, squinting into the setting sun. "Well, son, when predators chase them, they hop in circles to confuse them. Makes it harder for the predator to catch them." He paused, the question tugging at something deep inside him. "You think people ever act like that?" Thomas's eyes, wide with innocence, locked onto Sam's. "Sometimes when they're scared," he said softly, almost as if he already understood the answer. Sam froze, taken aback by the depth of the boy's insight. Sam smiled faintly, ruffling Thomas's hair. "That's a sharp way of thinking, kid." But inside, a weight pressed on him. He had never considered that people might circle in fear when faced with danger sometimes. He wondered if he'd been circling his own fears for too long. As the weeks passed, Adelaide's role in the cabin also grew. She took over much of the cooking, her meals both practical and surprisingly flavorful for the limited ingredients they had. She mended Sam's torn clothes, and each stitch seemed to fill the space between them with an unspoken understanding. Sam knew she was strong, but she was also fragile. There was something in the way she carried herself, the way she didn't ask for more than what was necessary. She had been broken, like him, but had somehow kept going. Adelaide never asked too many questions about Sam's past, but Sam noticed the way her gaze lingered on him when she thought he wasn't looking, her eyes filled with empathy. The two of them were bound by shared grief, unspoken loss. There was something there, something simmering beneath the surface that neither of them dared to acknowledge. One evening, as the fire flickered low, Adelaide set down her sewing. "You've lost someone too, Sam," she said quietly, breaking the silence between them. Sam looked at her, his heart racing. "Yeah," he said after a moment, his voice hoarse. "I've lost more than I can count." Adelaide nodded slowly, her gaze soft but knowing. "I lost my husband the same way you lost your wife." She hesitated, as if choosing her words carefully. "It never really leaves you, does it, that emptiness?" "No," Sam said softly, his throat tightening. "It doesn't." There was a long silence between them, but it was a comfortable one. In that moment, Sam realized they didn't need to say any more. They had both lost, and somehow, that shared understanding was enough. A dark secret comes to light as the thaw continued. Adelaide seemed to grow more restless. Sam had noticed her looking out the window often, her eyes scanning the horizon as if waiting for something or someone to appear. He had asked her about it a few times, but she always deflected, changing the subject or offering a quiet smile. But as the weeks passed, Sam's suspicions only grew. There was something she wasn't telling him. The way she spoke of the land, the subtle gestures she made when talking about farming and ranching, it all pointed to something more than just survival. It pointed to a life that Sam could never understand. One evening, as the last light of day faded, Sam decided to press her. They were sitting at the table after dinner, and Thomas was already asleep by the fire, his soft breaths a reminder of how much Sam had come to care for him. "Adelaide," Sam began, his voice steady but firm, "I need to know the truth. You've been running for a long time, haven't you?" Adelaide stiffened, her eyes avoiding his gaze. For a moment, the room was thick with tension. Finally, she spoke, her voice quiet, but filled with a weight Sam had never heard before. "We were part of the Thornton cattle empire," she said softly, "one of the wealthiest families in the territory. But that life was stolen from us." Sam's heart skipped a beat. The Thornton family. The name had weight, power. They were a dynasty in the Montana territory, their wealth unparalleled. Sam couldn't believe it. Adelaide continued, her voice strained. "We were betrayed by our own guards. They left us to die in the snow. We barely survived, but the empire, the land, everything, it was taken from us. Now, we're just running, hiding." Sam sat back, stunned. The wealthy Thornton family? Betrayed? It didn't make sense. But Adelaide's eyes, filled with sorrow and regret, told him that it was the truth. They weren't just some lost family, they were running from something far more dangerous. "They'll come for us," Adelaide whispered. "They'll always come for us." Sam didn't know what to say. He had never known a life like hers, a life of wealth and power, only to lose it all. But now, sitting in his humble cabin, he understood that some things were more valuable than gold. And this family, Adelaide and Thomas, had found something in Sam's cabin that they had lost long ago. A place to belong. A family reunited. It wasn't long after Adelaide's confession that the Thornton family found them. 6 riders appeared on the horizon one afternoon, the sun casting long shadows across the plains. Sam could see them before they even reached the cabin, riding in a perfect formation, their horses galloping at a steady pace, their coats pressed and immaculate despite the trail conditions. Leading them was a man Sam instantly recognized, William Thornton. He was a tall man, older, with cold eyes that seemed to assess everything in an instant. Sam's heart sank when he saw him. This wasn't just any family. This was the family, the ones Adelaide had escaped from. Adelaide froze at the sight of them. She didn't move, didn't speak. Her eyes locked onto William, her expression unreadable. Thomas, unaware of the tension, rushed to greet the riders, his face lighting up as he saw his family. But William, his face as cold as stone, dismounted without even acknowledging Sam. "Mrs. Adelaide Thornton," William said, in a voice that could have frozen fire. "The entire territory has been searching for you." Sam stepped forward, his hand instinctively brushing the handle of his rifle. William's gaze shifted to him, calculated, dismissive. He didn't care about Sam. Not one bit. He was just a cowboy, a man with nothing to offer in a world of power and wealth. Thomas, still beaming with excitement, ran to his grandmother. But the joy was short-lived. William's sharp eyes landed on him, and the boy's smile faded. "We've brought a carriage," William said, his words as cold as the snow. "It's time to go home. A choice for love and honor." The air around the cabin was thick with tension. Sam stood at the door, watching as the Thornton riders gathered their horses, their perfectly tailored coats standing out in sharp contrast to the rough, snowy terrain. They moved with military precision, all too aware of their power, and it grated against Sam's every instinct. Adelaide stepped forward, her posture rigid, her face unreadable. She hadn't moved since she first laid eyes on her family, standing frozen, as though the sight of them had brought everything back to the surface. The wealth, the betrayal, the cold power they had once wielded. Sam had never seen her so vulnerable, so exposed. William Thornton, his face as stone-faced as ever, dismissed Sam without a second glance. He walked straight to Adelaide and placed a firm hand on her shoulder. "It's good to have you back, Mrs. Thornton," he said, a voice smooth but cold. Thomas, unaware of the underlying tension, ran to his grandmother's side, his face lighting up with joy. "Grandma, they've come for us!" He laughed, his small voice filled with innocence, but his joy didn't last long. "Come along, Thomas," William said sharply, turning his back to Sam as if the cowboy were no more than a piece of furniture. "We're going home." But Thomas hesitated, standing in place, staring up at Sam with wide, confused eyes. He looked between Sam and his grandmother, his small hands fidgeting as if he could sense the shifting undercurrent of emotions, though he didn't fully understand it. "Mr. Holloway," Thomas began, his voice trembling. "Are you coming with us?" Sam's heart clenched at the question. It was a simple one, yet it carried the weight of everything that had happened in the past few weeks. He had grown fond of this boy, he had come to care for him like a son, but there was no place for him in the world. Thomas was about to re-enter. "No, son," Sam said, swallowing the lump in his throat. "I can't go with you. You've got a place with them, with your family." Thomas's face crumpled. The tears welling up in his eyes mirrored the confusion and hurt Sam felt. The boy's small hands clutched his coat as if it were the only thing holding him together. "But I don't want to go with them," Thomas said, his voice breaking. "I want to stay here with you. You're my family." Sam knelt down to Thomas's level, placing a hand on his shoulder. His own throat was tight, and the words he had to say felt like they were being torn from him. "Thomas, listen to me," Sam said gently. "You deserve a better life than I can offer. You deserve a real home, and that home is with them, not out here in the cold with me." The boy didn't seem to understand. His confusion was written all over his face as he reached out for Sam, his little arms shaking with the weight of the words. "But you're the best man I know," he whispered. Sam's chest tightened, and for a moment, he almost lost his resolve. He wanted so badly to pull Thomas close and promise him that everything would be okay, that they could stay together. But the reality was far too harsh. "I know, son," Sam said softly. "I know, but I can't give you what they can, what you deserve." As Sam stood up, ready to watch them leave, Adelaide's voice cut through the silence. She stepped forward, her eyes never leaving Sam's. Her expression was full of quiet sadness, but there was something else, something stronger. Her lips parted, and for the first time since her arrival, she spoke plainly. "Samuel," she said softly, her voice filled with an emotion that made Sam's heart race. "I stayed these extra weeks because I was waiting for you to ask us not to leave." Her eyes searched his face, desperate for some kind of sign. "I thought if you really cared for us, you would ask. But you didn't, and I thought maybe I had mistaken your kindness for something more." The words hit Sam harder than he expected. They left him reeling, unsure of what to say or do. But then he understood. She had been waiting for him to ask them to stay, to offer them a future beyond what the Thornton family could give them. Sam felt a rush of regret. For all his stoic silence, he had never fully let them into his heart. He had been afraid of what caring for them might mean. But now, in this moment, with Adelaide standing before him, his heart surged with something he had buried for so long: hope. I didn't know how to ask," Sam said, his voice rough. "I thought you'd leave, and I'd be left behind. But I care for you, Adelaide, more than you know." The air between them shifted, an invisible bond growing stronger. She stepped closer, her eyes filled with a mix of sadness and something softer longing, perhaps. "I should have known," she whispered, placing a hand on his arm. "I should have known that you cared. You've given us more than just shelter, Samuel. You've given us hope." And in that moment, Sam realized that he wasn't alone anymore. He had a chance at something he hadn't even dared to dream of in years: the legacy of love and family. The decision to stay or leave was still weighing heavily on Sam's mind, but Adelaide's words rang in his ears. It wasn't about the land, the money, or the Thornton empire. It was about love, family, and the future. It was about the bond he had formed with Adelaide and Thomas, a bond that couldn't be erased by wealth or power. That night, after William and his men had departed, Adelaide sat with Sam by the fire, the room filled with a new kind of warmth, one that wasn't from the hearth. She had made her choice. She wasn't going back to her old life, not the way William had intended. "We're staying, Samuel," she said softly, her voice full of resolve. "This is where we belong, with you, with Thomas." Sam's heart soared as he looked at her, her eyes filled with the same emotion that had been growing between them for weeks. They didn't need to speak further. They both knew what had been unsaid. Their journey together was just beginning. Over the next few months, things began to change. Adelaide and Sam worked side by side, transforming the cabin into a home filled with love and purpose. Thomas grew stronger, becoming more than just the quiet boy Sam had first met. He was a boy full of life, laughter, and hope. And with each passing day, Sam found himself more and more at peace with the life they were building together. The Thornton estate remained a distant memory. Sam no longer cared about the wealth that had once defined Adelaide's world. He had something better now, a family to care for, to fight for. And for the first time in years, Sam felt like he had a place in the world. Adelaide's choice to stay had given them both a second chance at happiness. The Thornton fortune would never matter. What mattered was the love they had found in each other, and that was worth more than any riches the world could offer. As the sun set on another beautiful day in the Montana Territory, Sam stood with Adelaide by his side and Thomas at his feet. They watched the world go by, knowing that no storm could ever tear their family apart again.